Now, there's one thing about the human animal. If it has class, it has it. If it doesn't, you cannot give it to them.
This is The Law. Live audio wrestling with the latest news, info, and interviews from the world of pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and the best of combat sports worldwide.
You broke the all-time record for the largest gathering of trailer park trash The Rock has ever seen.
I'm one of the biggest legend stars ever. This God, and your kids took their tooth tight too, Billy.
And I heard the news the next day, and I slept like a baby last night.
From time to time, we'll be bringing you what we feel were the best of our recent shows.
Like me or not, I didn't come up here to be liked. I came up here to get paid. And whoever you put in front of me, I'm gonna drop you down.
Yeah. Dummy. Yeah. Dummy. Yeah.
I've had them down there on the dirt. I know what it's like to eat out of garbage cans, man. I know what it's like to sit there on the street and do nothing. I know what it's like to fight.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Tidwell and Bradie Whetham.
Most want to wait for it to play its way out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week. I'm your host, ever so humble, Chris Tidwell, and joining me each and every time. Wouldn't be the same without him, little Bradie Whetham. How you doing today, buddy?
Ever so arrogant, little Bradie Whetham. I am doing fine. How are you, sir?
It's been a hell of a week, man. I am surprised that we're actually still going. I think I am on my 22nd energy drink because I don't drink coffee. I've been up since like Friday morning. Yeah, that's horrible. Look, that mug is the same size as you, young man. I have been up since Friday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. I haven't slept yet because there's just been that much going on. And we're going to try. The key word here is try to get through all of that stuff. We're talking about PFL versus Bellator. Those fights happened. We're talking TNA had a pay-per-view on Friday night. WWE had a pay-per-view on Saturday morning at 5 o'clock in the freaking morning. The UFC had a fight in Mexico City on Saturday night. What else happened? There was boxing all day long going on. Like, it has been absolute mayhem. And if that wasn't enough, we actually found time. I'm not even kidding when I tell you this. We found time to record this week's Kick in the Head with none other than some of you may or may not know the name of Danny Bullwhip Johnson. If you do, congratulations. You're a better human being. If you don't, go look it up because it's the history of professional wrestling, the things that you need to know about. And we sit down with his son, Eric Johnson, who's written a book about being the son of a Hall of Famer, and joining us, of course, one of Danny Johnson, one of Bullwhip's best friends, who's been on this show before, and a very good friend of ours, Harry D, stops by as well. So this is one Kick in the Head, and you can tell if you're watching this on YouTube that by Bradie's reaction, you don't want to miss this one. If you're listening to all of this on our podcast providers, don't worry. It's going to be seamless for you like it is each and every week, but you may want to go back and watch this one too, because anytime Harry D shows up, Bradie, wow, it's a party.
I'm putting in the disclaimer out now.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It's free speech here.
Always, and never anything more. So shout out to all of you that are joining us. And listening to this. Thank you so much each and every week. We appreciate the heck out of you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get right into this because so much is happening. So much is happening.
We have Sunday, March 3rd, Mississauga, Ontario, the Don Golliver Arena. Destiny is presenting Carnage. with the one and only former WWE superstar, Mustafa Ali.
And he's taking on Gabriel Fuerza. It's going to be one hell of a match right there. Not to mention that we've also got Destiny Wrestling is going to be doing 2 matches for the start of the Women's Championship title picture, right?
Yeah.
Got Alexia Nicole taking on Lisa Hall and Holly Dead taking on Crystal Moon. You're also going to have Charles Mason making his way up into Ontario to take on Tarek, another guy, a hell of a talent out there.
All the punches, all the kicks, and all the chops.
Not to mention that Destiny champion Trent Seven is also going to be there. And he doesn't have an opponent yet. So that means, to me, surprise, surprise, surprise. So you're going to want to get your tickets. You're going to want to get your tickets fast. This is going to sell out. I guarantee you it will.
You go to DestinyWrestling.ca or Facebook.com/DestinyWrestling. Get all your info. Get your tickets now because I'm pretty sure we're going to be there doing some coverage.
Absolutely, we will.
And we are back on the Law Live Audio Wrestling. And oh my goodness, I am so excited for that Destiny show. So excited.
You know what makes it that much more exciting for me, Brady?
What's that,
is
buddy?
the fact that Mustafa Ali, who is one hell of a talent, no doubt about it, and coming off of his big win this past weekend with TNA Wrestling in that main event. Oh my goodness. Wow. Listen, we were talking about this and I said to you, I said, wow, somebody is really channeling their inner Eddie Guerrero, aren't they? And Mustafa Ali is doing just that. And that is a compliment of all compliments. When you can see it and it's happening, you're doing good things, sir. Good for you.
In Ali, we trust. In Ali, we trust.
And speaking of the TNA pay-per-view in New Orleans, shout out to all of the boys and girls that went out there and busted their ass. Everybody was kind of concerned about how this was going to go because this was their first pay-per-view without Scott D'Amore. And making the rounds, there's a video going on about how EY, Eric Young, came out with the entire locker room and addressed the crowd prior to the show happening. Fantastic, emotional. But at the end of the day, he laid it out there for everybody that the show must go on. The absolutely must go on. And that's exactly what they did. Here's the thing that I noticed throughout the night is the crowd kind of started off a little low, a little quiet. You know what I mean? But by the end of that night, man, they were ready to rock and roll. And in a town like New Orleans, if you can get their attention for that, you're doing really good things because there's always a party going on in New Orleans.
Well, I agree with you when it comes to the locker room stepping up and performing.
Yeah.
The event as a whole, I don't know if that was the one you want to hang your hat on.
Here's what I noticed about they tried to do as much as they can with what they had as far as the production end of things go. The talent inside of the ring, the guys and girls that went out there and busted their ass, absolutely. They did their job. The look of it and the way that was presented could have been better. And you almost have to ask yourself the question, would it have been better if Scott D'Amore was still there?
Yes, because he would have said, dim the lights a bit, guys. Fucking hang a curtain. We don't want a white wall beside our hard cam crowd.
Stop hanging stop pointing the shot in that direction where there's nobody at.
My goodness. It was really bad during the PCO match when they were outside PCO and Con and they were doing, I don't know if it was the aftermath or what it was going on, but there was a cameraman that I could, if Scott was there, he would have been screaming in his ear. He'd have been like, what are you doing? Like we've seen them do this even back at Universal. There is a way to light these shows. There's a way to deal with a crowd that is smaller than normal. And sometimes all you got to do, turn the lights down, turn the mics up.
Absolutely.
It's very simple. So is this a sign that somebody at who was ever directing this last night. Is this just the venue or this predicament they were in, or is this inexperience with coming to produce a wrestling show on your own?
I mean, I don't think it has to be exclusive to one of those items or the other. I think it can be a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. Here's the thing. I am willing myself, and I know this is very big of me. You're welcome, people. I am willing to give them an opportunity to iron out the wrinkles that are going to be expected right now. Yep. We can't imagine what that process is like, nor can we assume that it's going to be nailed 100% right out the gate. You know, this is a whole new process all over for some of these people. We don't know who's doing this stuff, you know?
So your highlight from Friday night, what do you, if you could, let's take three things. What's your three big things that you took from that pay-per-view?
The main event match, fantastic. Very well done. The only part that I did not like was the security goons. You know what I mean? The guys in black suits that did nothing except for one spot, and then they laid there for 10 minutes helping somebody on the outside instead of picking up the bodies and getting them out of there. It was kind of weird. It wasn't needed.
You called me the next morning and you're like, hey, you know, outside of it not being needed and it doesn't really get any good heat because nobody knows who these agents are. Who the hell were they talking to in their headset?
This was my thing. Everybody's touching their ears like they're trying to hold their earpiece in, like they're talking to somebody in the back. Wouldn't
Scott.
that person in? Wouldn't that person?
Scott. It was Scott via satellite. Yep.
Wow. There's the tinfoil hat conspiracy right there, right?
Bryce Mitchell. We don't have to check. We don't have anything to check in with Bryce Mitchell this week, so I figured I'd give you something.
Unbelievable. So that match was very good. I didn't care for that sequence, but whatever.
The match was great.
The closing sequence for the match between Giselle Shaw and Jordan Grace, the closing sequence, the speed of it, the execution of it was great. Yeah. Spanish fly off of the ring apron looked fantastic. And then really the third thing outside of that I thought was good was the match with Josh Alexander, of course, you know, with one half of the vaudevillians.
Hey, where was Crazy Steve? Wasn't there a graphic that said he was doing some sort of like street fight or something like that? And then is that for the digital? Is that still the digital media championship, which now is only available on digital media? Like
maybe it is, and it could have also been something that was done for the tapings the next night as well.
Could have been a timing issue. It was a jacked up card. They ended, you know, a couple minutes early before their end time, but they were. It felt like they got in and got out.
Yeah,
like we're gonna do with this episode.
Absolutely. You know, I think that they did a good job. They got in, they got out, no harm, no foul, nobody got injured. So all in all, good outing for TNA.
So let's go over to some fights. Now, we had all of them. There was about 14, I think there was 1,400 or 1,500 fights this weekend.
Give or take one or two. Yeah, It was unbelievable. I mean, you had, what do you want to talk about first? Let's talk about PFL versus Bellator.
Oh, goodness.
What happened a little bit, earlier on, and everybody thought that this was going to be even. Well, guess what? It wasn't. I mean, first of all, you had it over, you had special appearances by one John Jones over there. This was taking place in Riyadh, obviously. Here's the thing that PFL has to try and do. Stop sucking. Do that right now. Okay. Every one of your guys got clowned except for one. And that was the main event. And the only reason that that Ryan Bader got it smashed by Renan Ferreira in the first round. I mean, he hit him, knocked him down, and then proceeded to give him 13 shots to the back of the head.
Renan is a talent, and it's going to be interesting to see because they're saying now that he's fighting Ngannou.
He must be hollow.
Yeah.
He absolutely must be hollow because the shell of that man is a super heavyweight. When you look at Ryan Bader is not, he's not a large heavyweight by any shape, of the imagination. He's more like a Randy Couture kind of heavyweight.
He's a big boy though, man.
But he's thick.
Yeah,
He's
Bader's
thick.
a big boy.
And Ferreira is just a massive human being. Like, to see him and Francis Ngannou, hopefully this does something, because let's face facts here, Brady. Francis Ngannou has another big boxing fight coming up.
He's taking on AJ.
We've seen this already in the world of MMA and what we've been talking about for a while now with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor doesn't have to come back because he's got hundreds of millions of dollars and there's no drive for him to do so. My fear, could you imagine if all of a sudden Francis Ngannou after this next boxing thing is like, you know what? Deuces. I got 10, 15 million dollars in the bank and a nice tie-in with the Saudis. I'm just going to go do that.
Throwing it back to wrestling for a minute, Michael Chandler in the crowd at Raw trying to call Conor out. It kind of proves what you're saying. They got to get to the point now where Michael Chandler has to go in a completely different sport and take over TV time to try and get McGregor to fight him. So right. I think there's a better chance you're going to see McGregor versus Chandler at WrestleMania than you were UFC 300.
In the stands, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, it certainly would probably be just as good a fight as the fights that were in the stands at UFC Mexico this past.
Oh my! They say it was the worst brawl ever in the history of brawls in the crowd.
When you've got the people fighting in the octagon saying, "Hey, can everybody please just calm down a little bit here?"
So this is a perfect segue from PFL versus Bellator. If you haven't checked out that event, go check it out. It is definitely a one-sided whooping from one company to the other. We had karate combat championships, which I sure as hell did not watch. I don't know if you found the time to watch it.
I caught some highlights of it. Very good fights. I'm going to go back and watch some of that stuff, and that's just because of the timing of when everything was on. But I did, of course, stay awake. Don't know why, to watch the UFC Mexico City fights.
Yep. Okay. So give me 3 highlights from, I know it's hard because the fights were great all night, but give me 3 highlights from the UFC event. What was your big takeaways?
Here's my first highlight. Stop sleeping on Brian Ortega.
You love Brian Ortega. You have always been putting his, since we started doing the weigh-ins, brothers, and the pre-punches and stuff, you have really been in his corner.
You know why? It's because his ability to take in information, process that information, and then execute the plan because of that information is flawless. And I'm a big fan of his coach, Henner Gracie, who is unbelievable at being able to do breakdowns. If you've ever caught any of those Gracie breakdowns online where they break down these fights, flawless. It's unbelievable. So the fact that, and then, I mean, Brian Ortega, the beatings that dude has taken in the face, unbelievable.
The beating he gave himself when Bruce Buffer was announcing his name was bad enough.
Yeah.
If anybody didn't see it, Brian Ortega took a little leap, which you see a lot of fighters do. They'll do a vertical jump when their name's being called or when they're prepping. And Brian Ortega rolled his ankle. Yep. And it looked bad enough where, like, it was swollen by the time we were 30 seconds into the fight, which means he sprained his ankle.
He didn't need it, though.
No, he did not. And why is that?
He didn't need it because he ended up winning by tap. The tap that might have been held on a little bit too long, but, I mean, that's neither here nor there, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, Brian Ortega was not losing in front of his ex-girlfriend, okay? He was out there to prove a damn point. And you would think by taking on a guy with Yair Rodriguez, I mean, Yair is no slouch. He's top of the food chain there.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Ortega just solidified, and he said to everybody, hey, bitches, I'm back. That's one takeaway.
I don't want to act like, Miss Cleo, but at the beginning of the second round, I knew Yair was broken.
Yeah.
He was broken at the very beginning. You could see it in his face. He was like, what in the hell, man?
I can't do anything. Why is this? What is happening? I'm fighting an actual zombie here.
Look how long it took Volk in his prime to put Ortega down.
Yeah.
Like it takes a minute. This guy is durable as hell.
Right.
And now he's
Then
a
the main
contender
event.
again.
Then the main event. That main event between the two Brandons, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval. I'm still dizzy from watching this fight because of how fast-paced and crazy it was. Over 500 shots thrown by Brandon Royval alone, ladies and gentlemen.
Did Moreno seem like he was way too relaxed? Like he's usually relaxed and they're having fun, but he seemed a little too calm.
A little too hesitant. Didn't really want to go in for the kill, it seemed like, and Royval just kept putting it on him. And listen, get this. I understand that it's really hard to engage and get in close with a guy. Brandon Royval, a little bit longer of a fighter. It's hard to get in there when the volume that he's throwing out there doesn't leave for any kind of spaces. You've got to be very good. Brandon Moreno got picked up early because he kept trying to throw that big overhand right. He's coming out of everything, throwing that big overhand, and it got read too much. And I think that was his downfall. Now, Brandon Moreno, one hell of a fighter. Don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Royval just happened to be on his game that night. Unbelievable.
It was a fantastic event. You can watch the replay on ESPN Plus, and I believe it'll be on Fight Pass by the end of the weekend here. So go check it out. Now let's take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, I don't know if you've heard yet. I've loaded it up in here. We're going to take. I've only heard a little bit of it, but we're going to take a listen at the exact same time. We have another little. Should I say? I don't know how to do this politely. We have another fuck up from our old buddy Dave.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get into that right after we get into this.
Do you have a podcast? Are you looking for high-profile guests for your show but don't know how to get in touch with them? Go to podstars.net. That's podstars.net. For less than $9 a month, you can get access to a huge selection of celebrity guests like wrestling superstar The Blue Meanie, to musicians like Marty Ray, and even actors like Tom Arnold. Podstars is the place to go to connect with everything you need for your podcast. So go to podstars.net with a Z to get signed up. At podstars.net, you'll be happy that you did.
And we're back. This is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. For all of you joining us here on YouTube, that's the Law Live Audio Wrestling. For your podcast providers, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, you can join. It's the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Now, as you said, Brady, apparently the dunce of all dunces, the stooge a la carte king stooge, is at it again.
Well, I'm about to change his name from Dave Meltzer to Dave Biden because I don't know what is going on. At this point, it's got to be he's just getting senile.
You think it's a little bit of dementia maybe set in?
It has to be. If he does not come out and say he's sick in the next 6 months and that he's dealing with new medication or something,
okay,
this is getting to the point now where the rooster needs to leave the coop.
Well, here's the thing that I've noticed with Dave, and this has always been a thing over the course of time, is whenever he gets called out on one of these really bad ones, he resorts back to, I'm going to talk about numbers because, he thinks that numbers don't lie. So let's give this a little bit of a listen right here and marvel in the mayhem that is Meltzer.
For someone who hasn't heard this, you just, holy crap. Let's go. Let's do it.
Just this week of essentially all the pay-per-view buys by state from TNA, WWE, and AEW. And it's very interesting because I think the one thing that's most interesting is for WWE pay-per-views, okay, the people who still buy in pay-per-view, okay, they are most successful.
Pause this for a second.
I
hate this fucking guy's voice now. It was never this bad. And this is coming from a guy who has a robot voice. I have a permanent robot chain smoker's voice. I get it. I was a ring announcer. I blew my voice box out. I sound like Miley Cyrus. Yes, I've deleted a few comments that have said that I sound like Miley Cyrus.
But you don't sound like the less smart brother of the Sling Blade twins. Okay.
Holy shit, dude. You know what he talks like? He talks, speaking of insane asylums, he talks like the guy, the frustrated kid on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who also is Chucky, the voice of Chucky, whoever that actor is.
I wish he was the window. I wish he was the window in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Just have a gigantic
sink to the face.
I jump right through him.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, let's keep going here.
States where the average income is the lowest. You would think that people who would pay $60 for a pay-per-view come from more affluent states.
Why would you possibly think that, Dave? Why could you possibly think that just because by your logic more affluent neighborhoods have an extra $60 laying around? They have nothing better to do with their $60 but put it onto a pay-per-view cost? Let me point back, before we even go any further on this, let me point back to the days when there was a thing going on in the world, the Great Recession, when people didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, when dust farming was an actual thing. All right. You know what people spent their money on? Do you think it was like baby food? Or do you think it was like steaks or vegetables or anything like that they could have, fed their entire families with? No. You know what the highest ticket priced items out there were? Candy. Do you want to know why it was candy, Dave? Because it made them feel good. It doesn't matter the cost of it if it makes them feel good. So for you to say that people in certain neighborhoods only spend their money, no, I disagree completely. Because if I've only got X amount of dollars and I'm going to spend it on one pay-per-view or some candy, you know what I'm going to spend it on? I'll spend it on some candy. Because I don't need to buy the pay-per-view when I can watch all of the clips I need every 15 seconds when they're put out there on damn TikTok. Also,
what are you doing on TikTok?
We have this awesome thing called streaming services. Who the hell pays for pay-per-views anymore,
Okay,
David?
whoa, we do with the help of our lovely sponsors.
That has nothing to do with it. We pay for pay-per-views because we have to, and it's our jobs to do so.
Yes.
But we both know that the majority of people out there, a lot of which we know, will just as easily go find a stream online
100%.
Or go on to Reddit and ask for a link or go on to Twitter and ask for a link or do something like that. So your logic is not only askew, Dave, it's wrong.
Here's the thing. I had the network for like 5 years and I still streamed it on my phone without using the network because it was easier for me to just go to an illegal stream and watch it than to pull up all the bullshit you got to do here in Canada to get the network to work on your fucking device. So
what else is this?
All right.
Then the ones who pay whatever, Peacock is $9.99, I think again, or $8. Maybe it's $8.99. I don't even know, and I get it, right? But it's obviously
same. I just kind of said the same thing though.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I'm gonna pay my service for the WWE Network as opposed to putting out $70 for a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, but it's just interesting. But for AEW, it's the opposite. AEW, the more affluent the state is, the better they do on pay-per-view. And Oklahoma, where they were tonight, is one of the states that AEW does not do well on pay-per-view.
But then why did they go there? Why did they go there then, Dave?
WWE does great on pay-per-view. There are a lot of states, and this really does correlate. I looked at the states that AEW performs the worst on pay-per-view.
Is he making fucking lunch? Like, what's he doing?
he's making a mess of his brain and of mine too. Maybe it has nothing to do with the, you know what? Fuck him. This is out of there. Maybe it has.
No. We needed that. We needed that because there's a tagline here that. So we were sent this by one of our viewers.
All these shows.
We need the end because supposedly the tagline that it said in the subject line was at the very last sentence, and that supposedly is what we need to hear.
Okay.
In the pay-per-views, and they probably, I mean, it's an interesting thing, like where they're more popular and where they're not. But I think that like they need to be going to the states with the highest income. Poor people don't like AEW.
Okay.
Motherfucker.
Okay.
Poor people don't like AEW.
Yeah. You know who else doesn't like AEW, Dave? Rich people. Rich people don't like AEW either, clearly, because your statement is that WWE does better in these markets. Maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with the income of the household. Maybe it just has to do with the WWE has more fucking fans.
Okay, you know what? Next week, we're not doing a Dave Meltzer segment. We're bringing KJ back. I'd rather deal with the headache of people complaining about KJ mentioning Vince McMahon doing inappropriate things in a humorous way than I can do dealing with the anger that you're going to be the rest of this episode because somebody sent in another Dave Meltzer clip.
It's infuriating because I left doing this kind of stuff to go become a professional wrestler. I took the time to learn the craft so that I could talk shit about those people afterwards. I earned that right. Dave Meltzer hasn't done a damn thing. Nothing.
All right,
the only
clip that. Send that
guy's
Dave.
ever done is on the back of a toilet. Anyways.
All right. Okay. So we had the Elimination Chamber. And if you want a full recap of the Elimination Chamber, head over to smneradio.com or go to any podcast provider and check out Sunday night's main event. The lovely guys, the Smack Daddies from the podcast, the Smack Daddies, they reviewed the event in full. I guarantee Boris will have his review it on TSN Radio later on today as well. But we're going to take a completely different path with the Elimination Chamber here. We're not going to talk about the event as a whole because, like I said, you can hear it a bunch of different spots. A lot smarter people than us going to be talking about it. I want to talk about the main event, which will lead into what our thumbnail has asked here. And this is something that you brought up to me, and I don't really know the direction you're going to take with it, but I am very intrigued. So, main event was a women's world championship match in Perth, Australia. Between Nia Jax, The Rock's cousin, we have to just say that at this point, versus hometown girl, Rhea Ripley. What did you think about it?
So I asked the question in the thumbnail for this show, and there's a picture of Rhea Ripley. There's a picture of Jordan Grace. There's a picture of Bianca Belair. And there's a picture of Jade Cargill. All in that thumbnail. Now, what do all of these human beings have in common? Other than the fact that they're in the world of professional wrestling. When you look at each one of them, you see, and it has been shown, one hell of a strong woman inside of that ring. So the question that I asked is this pro wrestling? Is this where we're at? Have we changed the whole thing from, the divas and the cat fights and the lingerie matches and the pillow fights and the rolling around in Jell-O? Because, for the longest time, we were told that was wrestling. Mm-hmm. For the longest time, we were told that this is what you would expect when you see women inside of a ring, is all of a sudden from side to side, run, grab the hair, roll around, cat fight, cat fight, cat fight. Maybe a boob falls out because they forgot to put a pasty over it. That's what you were hoping for when you were younger.
Remember,
but now
keep going. No, keep going.
But now what we have is we have these specimens, people like Rhea Ripley, people like Jordan Grace, people like Jade Cargill, people like Bianca Belair, that just have this freakish strength about them and this mindset towards wrestling that you've never seen before with women's wrestling. So I asked the question, is this pro wrestling? My answer, very simple. 100% it is.
So what I was going to say is I feel like the women's wrestling, because it's had so many starts and stops since the beginning of wrestling,
Right.
A lot of starts and stops, starts and stops, starts and stops. It's finally at the point with where they are athletically. I think where the 80s was with the end of the territories and the beginning of the boom when it came to the males. I think they've finally got that far. If that does that make any sense?
Absolutely it does. Let me tell you something, Bray. When there's footage out there somewhere, I'm sure, and it's no secret that I have never been that big of a fan in the past of women's wrestling. Didn't like it. Had no use for it. And that's because the product that was being fed to me wasn't good enough for me to buy into it. You're already asking me to buy into the world of professional wrestling in itself, which is a thing where I have to suspend my belief because I'm smart enough to know what the hell is going on. Now you're really asking me to do that when you've got this cat fight going on?
But when you say that, you're not giving yourself enough credit, because I've heard you say things over the years where you're like, yeah, women's wrestling, but you'll still give credit to things like to Sherry Martel
100%.
and be like, well, that's not what I'm talking about. So keep going. I don't mean to cut you off.
No. And where we are now, how it has changed, how it has evolved. You don't have these lingerie matches. You don't have these stupid gimmicky things that are just put out there to sexualize the women. The women are actually becoming legitimate athletes in the world of professional wrestling. Some of them already athletes before they got into the world of professional wrestling. And they're solidifying their spots now. So I will be the first one to tell you what I see out there now from women's wrestling, 90% great. And I'll say the same thing about men's wrestling too. 90% great.
I disagree with that. I'd say women's wrestling is 90% great. Men's wrestling right now is about 75. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, even inside of the WWE, with some people that I think eventually over the next couple of years will get weeded out.
Do you think that that's just strictly based on a numbers game because of the amount of men wrestling
100%.
to the amount of women that are wrestling?
I think it's the mentality of some of the guys that came up playing video games. And then I think a portion of it is a numbers game.
Here's what I'm going to say about women's wrestling right now is
Lay it out for me.
If where we are right now with women's wrestling, if that's any indication of where we can go forward with it, you are going to see some absolute studs of athletes.
Yep.
Here was my favorite part of WWE's Elimination Chamber, coming to you from Perth, Australia. My favorite part wasn't any kind of move. My favorite part wasn't any story. My favorite part wasn't, Cody Rhodes doing a cutter in a fucking $10,000 suit like a jerk.
Bless his
heart. in his designer shoes and fancy socks. Like, look at me. I'm so much better than everybody.
We had a rule. We don't shit on the boys. We don't shit on fashion.
Oh no, I'm not shitting on it. I'm jealous of it.
No.
I would have done something like that. And it would have looked like the Hulk pants by the time I'm done.
He did rip his suit, but all the power to him. It was great.
Right.
I like it. So what was your highlight?
My favorite part, and we're talking about this main event, because that was where my favorite part was. And it wasn't any part of the match, because you could only work with what you've been given to work with. My favorite part was Rhea Ripley. Her music hits. She comes out. She stops. She pauses. She looks at the crowd. And you can see Go back and look for it. You can see in her eyes, she is literally a hair away from cracking, from breaking, from sitting, from actually crying, from tears of joy, because she's standing where she's standing in front of her home country in the main event of a pay-per-view for the largest company in the world. And she knew right there, you could tell she was like, holy shit, this is my moment that you can never take away from me, ever, ever. And here's how I know women's wrestling is going to thrive, because of that moment right there. And the fact that when that moment hit and you saw over 52,000 people all on their feet cheering for this one female wrestler in her home country, the office, the WWE, the people in charge put her in that position because they believe that she's deserving of that spot. And she proved to everybody beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is deserving of that spot. Listen, Rhea Ripley's been a star for a long time. Don't get it wrong, right? But she came into her own this past weekend, and I could not be happier for her. That is absolutely unbelievable.
The older I get, the more, and I've always appreciated it. Like, and if you're a normal human being, you always appreciate it. But the older I get, the more I feel like it does kind of get, I do take a step back when you see these athletes and their families are there, and they get to perform in front of their families, and you see like how they interact with their family before they could do the match, and then what they're like after.
Yeah,
and it's one of the most organic things in wrestling that you see when they do, like with someone like Rhea, like you said, is in her hometown, and her sister's there, and her mom's there, and her aunts are there, and her friends from high school, and they're all sitting in this pile, and you could just see the look that she gives them the Iggy.
Yeah.
Like, and to me, that's the stuff that now I kind of get that little lump in my throat, and I'm like, holy shit, what are you doing? You're an adult, man up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All that chauvinistic crap.
So that lump in your throat that you're getting is happiness for another human being that you only realize when you're old and you take yourself away from the situation. She's deserving of all of that and more. And the fact that if you're smart enough to know to look for it and smart enough to know the signs of it, she let everybody know without letting anybody know. She let everybody know how happy she really is.
Super stoked for Marilyn Manson in the main event. That was awesome. I'm glad she got her run, but she is really starting to look like Marilyn Manson.
Well,
and I love it. I think it's great.
Listen, if you were asking me who I would like to spend dinner with at any given time, or even be in a room with, I would pick Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, she's
that has nothing to do with other than the fact that I think Marilyn Manson is a bit of a goof.
That's the second time you've dropped that word this show. All right. Yeah. Well, what else do we have in store for this week? We got another commercial break we have to take before we get on out of here, but we'll take a preview of what's going on with this week's Tid's Kick in the Head when we get back. You got anything else you want to drop on the listeners this week? Or
it might change between now and the next 30 seconds. So let's see what happens after this commercial break. My name is Chris Tidwell. That's Bradie Whetham. We're going to be right back after this. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling.
Bitch Fest, March 1st to 30th. Make sure you have your passes to Bitch Fest, Toronto's most inclusive DIY punk fest. Bitch Fest delivers 14 shows at over 9 venues, featuring over 50 of the best indie punk bands touring today. Every weekend in Toronto this March is Bitch Fest. Follow at bitch.fest_Toronto on Instagram and get your passes today at fanatickets.com.
Well, there it is. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. And, you talk about it. Here's my question for you, Bradie. What if you're sitting there at 49 bands? You need 51 to make that statement of over 50. Could you imagine saying over 48 bands?
Dude, that is the best ad we have ever played. Shouts out to Fanatickets for that one. Bitch First.
I'm so stoked.
That's my nickname, eh?
Fest?
No, bitch.
Oh.
I was a little bitch growing up. I used to wear a Long Beach hat and hang out with a bunch of older guys, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I was a little bitch," because we just had an LB on it. Yeah, fuck basketball.
Wow.
Bitch Fest.
Baseball is a great movie. What are you talking about?
It is, but it started the whole like little bitch thing, and I got called that for at least 6 months to 9 months before people forgot about the movie again. All my stoner friends. So, Bitch Fest is coming up. Get tickets to Bitch Fest. Also, get tickets March 3rd. Destiny Wrestling in Mississauga. The new X Division champion Mustafa Ali is there, plus a whole bunch of other talent. You got Trent Seven. There's a bunch going on. So get your tickets now. I think there's still probably a few tickets left. They had their event this weekend with Lindsay Dorado in Oshawa. That looked packed.
Absolutely.
So definitely get your tickets now. Matt Cardona was there. I think he was taking pictures with everybody, and there were some surprise guests. So you never know who shows up at Destiny. Get your tickets now. I am done plugging things. I don't ever want to hear about Meltzer ever again. I feel like I need to block anybody who sends us Meltzer stuff. So don't send us Meltzer stuff this week. At least give us a week break.
Yeah, KJ.
No, KJ's back next week on his best behavior. We've actually given him a leash. We said we weren't going to put anybody on leashes, but KJ requested one.
Well, he is a bit of a freak.
Okay, so moving on to
a freak on a leash.
Moving on to some freaks. You sat down with some freaks this weekend.
Well, I sat down with one freak and Eric Johnson.
Oh, okay, yes.
That's really how that went. I had the opportunity to sit down with Eric Johnson, the son of Danny Bullwhip Johnson, talk about his book that he has out right now. If you haven't had a chance, go to Amazon, check it out. You're going to listen to all of this, and we have a special run-in by our good friend Harry D, who joins us en route to wherever it was that he was going to tell some stories, some fantastic stories about Bullwhip, about Johnny Canine, about the bushwhackers hanging out in the pool. It's fantastic. It is
disclaimer. Yeah, no, Harry's got a loose tongue, but it's good. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm excited about it. I hope you all are too. For those of you listening to us here on your podcast providers, not even a seam. It's going to go right into that. If you're watching this on YouTube, all y'all got to do is just once this is done, it stops. You go right back, boop, and you click on the very next one. It's that simple. It's
and
not
while you're
hard.
Clicking on that, click on the like and click on the comment section and click on the subscribe. Click on the little bell. Add us to your notifications. Everything helps us grow. Thank you, everybody who actually has already done that. You guys are the best. You're helping us grow at a way more rapid pace than we ever thought we were going to. So shouts out to you guys. Shouts out to everybody listening on SME Radio, any podcast provider that you're finding this on. We can't thank you enough. Like I said, do some ratings, do some likes. Give us, I don't give a shit what you do. I just love you guys for tuning in and putting up with us for this long. Chris, before we roll this right out, you got anything you want to say to these people?
Tuck your chin, people.